007, are you there? Bond! Bond! Bond, are you there? Bond!
For your eyes only, darling.
For your eyes only can see me through the night. For your eyes only, I never need to hide.
For Your Eyes Only is the 12th film in the James Bond series and the 5th outing for Roger Moore. The title suggests an intimate and personal film, and that's a good way to describe this installment. The mood is established right away when Bond is seen visiting the grave of his late wife. It's a brilliant nod to Majesty, and it's continued when Blofeld himself makes a return. He's more or less in the condition he was in when he pulled the drive-by at the end of Majesty, so the producers kindly ignore his role in Diamonds. The sequence with him here is pretty good, and he finally gets his long-deserved demise. The rest of the movie is very low-key, which can largely be attributed to a new director and a desire to bring Bond back to basics after Moonraker. But I'll talk about that later. The plot involves not the potential destruction of the world, but simply a competitive race for a MacGuffin. A MacGuffin, by the way, is an object that only has any real significance because everybody wants it, a term coined by Alfred Hitchcock. We saw this kind of story in From Russia with Love, but this time instead of a Lecter, it's an ATAC, and it has something to do with nuclear submarines. The ship carrying it explodes after getting hit by a stray sea mine, and the Brits in power send 007 to go find it before the Russians do. Roger Moore is already looking like an old man in this one, but he's still good in the role and plays it a little more straight this time around. The villain, and this is a spoiler warning for those who haven't seen the film, is Ares Christados. He's a very down-to-earth baddie, not one of the best villains, but he suits the story pretty well. His henchmen are a lot different from what we've seen with the past few entries. They seem more intelligent and more personal to the villain's project than, say, Jaws. Christados poses as Bond's ally at first, and it's a nice twist when we discover the truth. The twist also reveals that Columbo, originally thought to be the villain, is the ally. He's played by Topol, the Israeli actor famous for playing the lead in Fiddler on the Roof. I had the privilege of seeing him perform in Fiddler live once, and seeing him in a Bond movie with Roger Moore just cracks me up. The girl is Melina Havelock, and while her backstory involving revenge is definitely interesting, the way the actress plays her is amazingly bland. She does her part in the movie, not sticking out as particularly good or bad. There's also Bibi, who may actually be a minor, but that doesn't stop her from hitting on 007. Bond responds appropriately and legally.
Yes, well, you get your clothes on. I'll buy you an ice cream.
Q has his usual larger role in this one, but he doesn't really provide Bond with any memorable gadgets. The producers probably wanted to move the series away from outlandish gimmicks at this point. M does not appear in this one as Bernard Lee was dying at the time. We still get Frederick Gray, Minister of Defense, who has been a recurring character since Spy Who Loved Me. He'll be around for the next few entries as well. General Gogol appears in a more villainous role this time around as he tries to get his hands on the ATAC before the British do. Now, I said that Q has no real gadgets this time around, but that doesn't mean the action is any less exciting. In fact, For Your Eyes Only has some of the best action of the series, and it's all to the tune of 80s BGM. We see that in several instances, including a mountain car chase, a ski chase, clearly another nod to Majesty, And in a truly remarkable sequence, Bond scales a cliff in order to reach the villain's quarters at the top. This installment has a distinctly Greek flavor, with names like Christados and Melina's claim that her Greek background facilitates the need for vengeance against those who murdered her parents. There's a nice bit at the end where the Prime Minister herself calls Bond to thank him personally, but only gets a parrot on the other line.
Give us a kiss. Give us a kiss.
Well, really, Mr. Bond.
I think we're having a little trouble with the line, madam.
Now, as for the director, Louis Gilbert left the Bond series permanently after Moonraker and was replaced by John Glenn, who would go on to direct the next 4 entries after this one. Glenn's style is less garish and less colorful than Gilbert's, and he can be very inconsistent at times. He does a great job with For Your Eyes Only, but some of his later work is, well, not so good. Glenn defined Bond's image in the 80s, though, as every single Bond film that came out in the 80s was directed by him. His first effort is a superb entry in the series, and its serious tone is a great change of pace for the Moore era. I give For Your Eyes Only an 8 out of 10.
Your eyes only can see